Today is March 18th, 2015, and I said that I would talk about programming that was done by Judge Gillespie. So some of the programming that he did, aside from this mock trial thing that they had for kids that I was involved in as a kid, included, aside from that, I was meeting him at his chambers, and so I would walk past Teresa, the secretary, and go to his chambers and talk about things. And then I was also at his house, and to my knowledge, it was his house. I didn't hear that it was anyone else's house. And I was there many times, and for some reason I was dropped off there. So I am pretty sure that I was dropped off at his house for like a week at a time. And aside from that, I sometimes just stopped in for like a couple of hours on a specific day. So there were times that I was at his house, for maybe a couple of hours when we were in town, and then there were other times where I didn't see my parents at all, and I was just at his house for like a week. And during that time, I was sleeping in his bed. And from what I remember, he had a wife. But he said that what I heard, I'm not sure if they were maybe separated. And this is when I was a preteen. And I am not sure if maybe they were separated, because I kind of think that that's what he said, or that maybe she was traveling. And but if they were living together like regularly, and they had no separation matter going between them, I didn't know about that. I did meet her. I met her one time, but it was not for very long. And then she was kind of like there a minute and then gone. And from what I remember, she was wearing some kind of a suit jacket, and she looked professional. I think she was fairly pretty. She looked kind of standard, pretty, average, type of woman. And it's possible she was with another woman. I think that she was with another woman when I met her, so I knew that I was meeting her. But right now, because it's been such a long time, I wouldn't be able to tell you like what color of hair she had, because I'm not completely sure, because there were at least two women there. It was her and her friend. And I think one of them had kind of medium blonde hair, and the other one had regular brown hair. It was kind of average brown. Average brown to maybe dark brown. But none of them had black hair. None of them had like platinum blonde hair or anything like that. And I think that possibly, but I am not certain about this, possibly one woman one time had sort of whitish hair, like white, such as, graying and then it turns white, that kind of hair. And but my recollection on that is that if that's true, if she was around Judge Gillespie's house, I believe that it was possibly Marianne McIntosh. And Marianne McIntosh is someone who is from the typically from the Wenatchee, Washington area. So she's typically more, closer to Judge John Bridges, not to Gillespie. But I do think that I saw Gillespie and Marianne McIntosh having a conversation together at his house, because she came into the house, and she has something to do with the Pentagon. And she was the attorney that the state used, and really the federal government used against me to kidnap my son Oliver for me, after I had already had him with me for a year and a half. He was extremely happy to be with me. It was very good. I am a very good mother, just as I've been a very good nanny. And there's nothing that I would do differently about how I was raising him and caring for him at all. We had obviously some political problems, and then after not torturing me for some time or targeting my son, at some point I was getting tortured. And what I know is that the government had already told me that whenever they wanted to basically take my kid from me, they could torture me, make me sound crazy because normal people wouldn't believe me, or it would sound strange and be impossible to prove. And they would keep torturing me until they removed my kid from me. And I didn't think that they were going to do that with my son, because he was with me for a year and a half, or at least for a year, and I didn't have problems at all. I mean, I had no personal problems, although things got slightly political again. A couple of people, I think, got their fenders dented. Figuratively speaking, there were just a couple of things here and there that put a few individuals on alert for themselves, not against me because they thought I was a bad mom, but because they wanted to protect or defend themselves. I mean, for example, I had said something about how I would raise my son, and probably he would one day want to defend me and challenge all these horrible people that have done bad things to me. Well, just saying that commonly, making that one statement, out of all the different things that I've ever said that had nothing to do like that, had nothing to do with that, you know, just talking about normal things, cooking, school, career ideas, and normal social things. This one comment put this one woman that I was talking to like on high alert. And I think it's because her family was one of the families that had done bad things to me. So I think she was worried that like I was going to raise up some like kung fu soldier that was, you know, going to be a lawyer and just take them out, you know, wipe them all out. And like her dad was going to be one of my son's victims. Something like that. And, you know, as soon as I made a statement like that with my history of being surveilled and bugged by the government, I'm sure there were a lot of other people in the government that were suddenly like, oh, yeah, we can't have that. And the other thing is that I was describing how really smart my son was seeming to be. And I think that the combination of his potential and how smart he was, and the fact that I wasn't like really, I mean, that I was fairly smart myself and they knew it. I think that combination of what they thought my agenda or goals were with like, or how they thought my son could possibly turn out, I think it scared some people. And I think that's when they really wanted to take my son away from me, to say, oh yeah, no, you're not, your son's not going to do anything like that. I think they wanted to control him completely. And they were afraid of it for themselves. And I think another problem that came up was that my son was seriously damaged in childbirth. And I was looking for a law firm just to fight for his damages, because he had some things that were going to affect him down the road, like his teeth, which I had been told by a dentist was caused by the traumatic childbirth. There were just some things that, some pain and suffering and things that he had to deal with that he shouldn't have had to deal with. And I haven't had that experience with actually any of the other kids that I've ever had, and I've had other babies. And I didn't have traumatic childbirths with the other ones like I did with him. With him, it was crazy. So, I mean, while I'm not going to say like everything is just like absolutely wonderful with my baby girls and their deliveries, there is like no damage with those baby girls from what I could tell. And there was no serious damage to me. I mean, I had normal things happen that normally happen in a regular vaginal delivery. With my son, and I'm telling you, I have the experience to be able to compare. He definitely had a very solid claim against the people who were responsible. And so as soon as people found out that I was looking for a lawyer and a law firm to represent him, and for me, for my damages, because I was also damaged in that, all of a sudden it became a nightmare. And that is actually when I started getting pressure from various individuals. They wanted me to quit driving to Seattle. I think they wanted to block me from getting a law firm to defend my son on a personal injury claim, medical malpractice. And I think that the government was involved in that, because the people who were involved in delivering my son in that situation were government people, and I already knew they worked for the government. And I just never expected or thought that what happened in that situation was really going to happen, but it did. So those are just two things. There are a couple of other things, but that's the type of thing that came up prior to all of a sudden I was getting tortured, and my son was getting tortured. And it wasn't that I suddenly had this new stress level, because there was nothing stressful to me about thinking my son was smart, or, you know, that how I was going to raise him, or getting a lawyer for our damages. I mean, all of those things were things that I thought, these are all things that can be positively worked on. So I had no stress from like any kind of negativity in my life. And then, but what the problem was is that there were others who perceived that this was a negative kind of action or activity that I might be churning up against them. And a lot of these people had a lot to cover for. So all of a sudden it got turned into this thing of this game of let's take her son away now. And he was already 1.5 years old, and they traumatized him severely by what they did. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but Marianne McIntosh, and I actually went to Canada with him, and the United States didn't even have any kind of governance or jurisdiction over my son at all, or me. And yet this country pretty much just does whatever they want. And the people over there in Canada were people I had already met and knew that worked with the CIA and the FBI, and I already knew that they did. So I got booby-trapped, basically, between this little zone of people who collude against kids. And so then that's kind of what happened with, that is what happened with my son. But at any rate, so this woman, Marianne McIntosh, was hired to be the state's attorney against me in order to steal my son from me. And Marianne McIntosh knew Judge Gillespie, because I remember her coming over here. I mean, I said I think it was her, but no, it was her. Because I do remember that although I met his wife and some other woman at one point, Marianne McIntosh showed up at his house. Excuse me, and was talking to him about me. So anyway, I don't remember that much about his house, except I mostly remember his bed. And I'm actually not sure why I mostly remember his bed. I just remember being in his bed a lot. And I don't really remember like his living room too much, or his kitchen, or really, I think I ate something there. I think I had something to eat when I was there, but I don't remember it. The only thing that I can remember is I was in his bed every night, and I remember being in his bed during the day. Like, for example, like it'd be like a Saturday morning or something, and I remember like okay, from the start of my memory and the point that I remember, I'm like, okay, all of a sudden I remember I'm in his bed. It's all white sheets and a white comforter, solid white in some way. And he had a tape recorder out, and he was working on me. We were supposedly practicing. He told someone that he did programming, but he didn't have to use torture to do his programming of kids. And then he was telling me that this was really important work, and I shouldn't protest against it because I was helping a lot of people if I helped him and worked on it. They were saying things like, it's going to be hard, but just work with us. Well, so he was recording all this stuff and having me rehearse that, and I think that I've already mentioned some of that in the video clip that I was talking about. But the other thing he was doing is he was sexually assaulting me in some way. He was using or sexually exploiting me and making references to things.